So one of the things I've done in Development Processes Studio as a way to try and bring, I guess, the cutting edge of planning practice into the classroom for my students is by bringing in a kind of planning activity called tactical urbanism. So tactical urbanism is this idea of people kind of outside of formal town planning processes getting involved in shaping cities collectively, collaboratively from the grassroots. It's been said that the 21st century has seen two new types of urbanism. One of them is extra large urbanism, the other is extra small. So tactical urbanism represents this extra small form of urbanism that's a really hands-on but also cutting edge and quite theoretically complicated once you get into it way of thinking about who gets to produce cities, how cities get produced, and who for. So, but as far as I'm aware, tactical urbanism, teaching it in a planning program, because it's not something that practicing professional planners do. This is something driven by communities. So bringing tactical urbanism into the classroom as a learning and teaching activity in a studio on development processes was, as far as I was aware, new. I'm not aware of other planning programs doing that, or wasn't at the time. So for me, this was highly experimental. I was taking something, I engage in tactical urbanism in my spare time. It's a hobby of mine, it's related to my research practice. And thinking about how to bring that into a more formal classroom environment where I had to meet learning objectives, where I've got graduate outcomes I need to meet, where there's also a bunch of other skills that students need to get across, meant that it was really important that I tracked what I was doing. So we weren't just having a huge amount of fun, but not necessarily learning things. So one of the things that was really important for me the first time I ran this studio, I've done it twice now, is journaling. So critical kind of reflective learning journals are something that I give my students as a learning activity, but it's also something I do myself for my own learning, both in my research and in my teaching. So I do just constantly write about what I am doing as I'm doing it. I reflect on how things are going in the classroom, generally immediately after class while the feelings are still strong. And that gives me a way to start to track what's working and what's not. It gives me a way to reflect on the constructive alignment of the learning activities to the learning objectives, to the assessment. It gives me a way to record the questions that students are asking, because that can sometimes give me a clue as to what I need to be doing in the class next week or what I need to be thinking about for the next iteration of the course. So those kinds of, that kind of journaling has been really important for me in terms of critical practice and critical reflection. I think the other thing that's really important here is for this tactical urbanism teaching practice to work, I am bringing in a lot of my own lived experience into the classroom. So I'm drawing on something that I have learned in the field. I've learned it from people belonging to various community groups who are active in and around Meange and Brisbane, who are interested in shaping the way their cities and neighbourhoods and streets work, who have largely given up or have some cynicism about mainstream planning processes. So there was a lot of kind of translation work that had to happen when you take a kind of lived embodied experience of meeting a bunch of people in a park with some saplings and some shovels and some compost and putting in a community garden, or developing up some histories signs, some signage about local histories with in collaboration with local community groups and sticking them up around town. There's a lot that goes from thinking about how those activities work in communities, in practice, and how I can try and replicate some of those relationships in the classroom. Obviously it's quite different, but I think some of those learnings around doing something that is place-based, hands-on, tied to people's real life experiences, and inherently collaborative, and all of the skills and issues that go along with working collaboratively, is something that has translated pretty well.